For this explainer, we're diving into some truly mind-bending material that suggests ancient India had knowledge that could rival and maybe even surpass our own. We're going to explore some incredible claims, everything from impossible engineering to advanced medicine, and even a grasp of atomic theory. Okay, to kick things off, just look at this comparison. Back in 1985, moving a 350-ton stone cost millions and took 11 days. Now, try to imagine placing a stone nearly 4 times heavier. We're talking 1,200 tons on top of a 216-foot temple 1,000 years ago. So the big question our source is asking is, how on earth did they do it? And that leads us right into our first big area of investigation. These claims about seemingly impossible engineering marvels from the ancient world. Let's just try to wrap our heads around that 1,200-ton stone. That's about the same as 3 Boeing 747 jumbo jets. I mean, you have to ask, what kind of technology could have possibly lifted that to such an incredible height a whole millennium ago? And then you've got something like the Kailasa Temple. Now, this place wasn't built up, brick by brick. No, it was carved downwards out of a single giant rock. The level of planning that would take is just mind-boggling. And this top-down method gave it unbelievable strength. In fact, get this, centuries later, an army of 1,200 men apparently spent 6 whole months trying to demolish it, and they barely even made a dent. I mean, that's just an incredible testament to the structural integrity of this thing. All right, now let's talk about the famous rust-proof iron pillar of Delhi. Standing for over 1,600 years without corroding is amazing in itself, but the material we're looking at points to an even bigger puzzle, that it was apparently welded together from different pieces so perfectly you can't even see the seams. That points to a level of metalworking that's just hard for us to wrap our heads around today. And, this incredible engineering wasn't just for one-off monuments. It was for entire cities. Check out Srirangam. The city isn't built around the temple. The entire city is the temple. We're talking a whole town with homes and markets all existing within 7 massive concentric walls, an unbelievable feat of ancient urban planning. Okay, so from these giant structures, we're going to pivot to something completely different but just as amazing, ancient medicine, where the claims from our source material are just as astounding. So, get this. Our source makes a pretty bold claim that the first documented case of plastic surgery didn't happen in some modern hospital. It happened in ancient India, and the procedure was so impressive that it was actually recorded by the British. The story goes like this. A British soldier lost his nose in a battle. A local Indian potter offered to rebuild it for him using a skin graft from the soldier's own forehead. And the result? It was so successful, so nearly flawless, that the soldier actually reported it to the British House of Commons. That created an official record of this incredibly advanced technique. Want to see just how advanced this practical knowledge was? Well, consider this. In 1799, George Washington got a sore throat. His doctors treated him with bloodletting, and he died. Meanwhile, for centuries in India, grandmothers knew a simple home remedy for the same thing. Just gargle with salt and turmeric water. And see, that's the key, right? This knowledge wasn't just for experts. It was practical, widespread, and it actually worked. And the source traces a lot of this medical genius back to one figure, Sushruta, known as the father of surgery. His surgical instruments were said to be so sharp, so precise, they could actually split a single human hair in half lengthwise. Think about that for a second. Okay, so this deep knowledge wasn't just about the human body. The next set of claims we're looking at suggests they understood the universe itself, from the tiniest particles all the way out to the cosmos. Here's a really fascinating idea from our source. It draws a line between the cosmic role of the deity Shiva, the destroyer, and the immense destructive power that's locked inside a single atom. It's a really interesting way to reframe a spiritual idea in a surprisingly scientific way. And that leads to this really thought-provoking question. Is it just a coincidence that the iconic shape of the Shiva Lingam, which is a symbol of this cosmic energy, looks so much like the containment domes of our modern nuclear reactors? And hey, this isn't just some ancient theory. Think about it. J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, famously quoted the Bhagavad Gita when he saw the first atomic test. And today, you can go to CERN, the world's leading particle physics lab, and right at the entrance, there's a statue of a dancing Shiva, symbolizing the cosmic dance of creation and destruction. And it didn't stop there. Apparently, this knowledge extended to building massive ships. The source claims that when Vasco da Gama arrived in India, he wrote in his diary that his own ship was tiny in comparison, and that he saw local ships 10 times bigger than his own. So you gotta wonder, right? How was all this incredible knowledge generated and then passed down for centuries? Well, the argument is that in ancient India, science, spirituality, and everyday life weren't separate things. They were all woven together. Take the ancient temple, for example. These weren't just places for prayer. No, they were the absolute heart of the community. They were your university, your hospital, your cultural center, your courthouse, and your marketplace, all rolled into one. So without books, without the internet, how do you make sure complex knowledge survives for generations? Well, the answer, according to the source, is brilliant. You encode it directly into the culture itself, into the symbols, the stories, and the daily rituals that everyone took part in. And here's a perfect example of how they did it. You've probably seen the Navagrahas, the 9 celestial bodies, in temples. Well, notice how the sun is always placed right in the center. This wasn't just some religious art piece. It was a public science lesson, a simple visual model showing everyone a sun-centered solar system. So all of this brings us to one last really important question. If this advanced knowledge system really existed, why isn't it common knowledge today? Why don't we all learn about this in school? Our source uses this really powerful and kind of sad metaphor from Swami Rama. He said that by cutting off a culture from the roots of its own scientific and historical achievements, the great tree of that civilization gets turned into a bonsai. You know, it's still alive, but it's been artificially stunted, unable to grow to its full natural potential. So the speaker in our source material really leaves us with this challenge, urging the younger generation to go back and rediscover this lost heritage. And that leaves us with this final provocative thought. If everything we've just talked about is only the tip of the iceberg, what other secrets, what other forgotten sciences are still out there, just waiting to be rediscovered?